I think uh, it's an evolving landscape, so it's very hard to actually come up with one piece of advice uh, which is like which could work, right? So so there's so much happening in the solution space, right? Like there are new techniques coming in, new things that you can do using AI and stuff. So you need good awareness of what are the things possible, but at the same time map it with the problem space, right? Like not lose track of, oh, what is it that actually drives value, right? And what is it that's useful, right? And now with all these new technologies coming in, earlier, like if you knew the problem space, the solution space was pretty much you know what's out there. Now you need to kind of map out both the areas and then figure out how can I match value to what is possible out there. So it requires both an understanding of uh, what can be built and what needs to be built.
Amazing. Stage is all yours, Aravind. Thank
Right.
you.
Right. Cool. All right, I'll just give a brief introduction about factors.ai and what's the problem that we're actually solving. And then what I thought was I'll just open up the architecture of the things that we're building and we have built and how it kind of interplays with the new age LLMs and generative AI with the traditional journey analytics that we're building, right? So what is factors.ai? So we are a B2B marketing analytics, attribution, and activation platform. So what that means is that we primarily solve for B2B marketers, which is basically marketers who are selling to businesses. And the main thing that we solve for is the measurement problem, right? How many of you have bought a software for your company over here? Like, been in the process of buying a software for your company, right? So if you check, I mean, I see a few hands, but you would have also bought some software for yourselves also. So what would happen in that process is that the journey is pretty long, right? Like you start thinking that, okay, you might need a software, then you hear some brand, you might see an ad on LinkedIn, or you might see a booth somewhere out here, and then you think, okay, probably this is possible now, and then the problem actually gets to you in a couple of months, and then you search on Google, you see an ad over there, you click on the link, and then you kind of pitch it to your manager or to other stakeholders in the company, and then you decide on what to build. You check out articles on the website, like what is possible, what are the features in this product, and then you sign up for a demo or a free trial and so on, right? So the buyer journey is very intricate, complex, and the data is kind of spread out, right? It is there on your ad channels, from the marketer's point of view. It is there on your ad channels, there's something happening on your website, there's something happening in your CRM, which is basically where you're tracking once they become a lead and a customer and so on, right? And if you really want to be efficient in what you do, or very optimal in what you do, or build very targeted campaigns, then if you don't measure it well, you're kind of flying blind. Like any decisioning system needs to have a good measurement mechanism for you to take good decisions. Else it'll be more like spray and pray, right? Like I'll just run some LinkedIn ads, I'll just run some Google ads, I'll just do some conversion optimization on the website and hope that everything comes together, right? But how are they interplaying, right? And so on. So the first thing that we solve for is mapping out a buyer journey. You would have heard of customer journey. Similarly, what we call it as a buyer journey, wherein we pull in all the data from different sources and kind of pull out a journey out of it, and then give analytics and insights on top of that, right? Like you could do a funnel analysis saying how many people did this and then actually ended up doing the next step, right? How many people saw the LinkedIn ad, came to website, did a submission and became a deal and so on and so forth. The next thing is now the buyer journey is not like a single threaded user journey because it's a company buying the software. There could be multiple users. So what we do is basically account-based thing, right? Account-based thing is, an account is a company, and each account could have multiple users. And on top of those accounts, we allow you to build segments or cohorts of audiences with very fine-grained properties and also based on on queries, funnel queries, and so on and so forth, right? So that is the next thing that we do, and also allow you to score the companies, the accounts on top of that. I'll get to it, but just to give a quick overview. And once you are able to build cohort of companies that are of interest to you, based on the activities they have done or based on properties, you can activate them through workflows and kind of send it to LinkedIn ads to sync, or if it's a website visitor, create a lead or deal on HubSpot and so forth. So you get the intelligence, and you can use the intelligence to kind of run targeted, personalized campaigns on different places. So what is it that we are building? I thought I'll just kind of open up our architecture. Apologies for the handwritten drawings. There are 2 other events going on, and I didn't want to kind of ask the product marketing team to work on this as they're busy building for the sales and marketing folks. So yeah, I put up a handwritten drawing over here. So what we're building is now marketing decisioning agents, wherein, okay, we built a lot of analytics and insights capability, and now with LLMs, what do we do, right? So first thing is we could try out, like, how good are they, right? So we go and ask a question. Let's say, hey, how do I improve my website conversion, right? It'll come up with an answer. It'll look, oh, wow, it knows something. But if you actually go through it, it's totally out of context, right? It'll say, oh, do this, do that, do A, B, C. It's basically taking some random internet advice and throwing it out to you, right? So LLMs are generative. It can come up with answers, but it doesn't have the intelligence. It doesn't have the context, right? And for it to actually work for our customers, we need to give the data and the context and make it work with it, right? So data and the context are still required. They are generative, but it needs what you could say, the left brain and right brain analogy, where you can create things, but you also need to be analytical. It should be able to crunch numbers. It should be able to look at previous patterns and then come up with the right advice for you, right? So this is broadly how the broad architecture of how our agents kind of talk with other modules to kind of to be intelligent. I'll go through it one by one so that we can kind of put it out together, right? So the first thing is, yeah, so the data engineering and the traditional AI techniques that's out there, especially when you're dealing with structured data, is very important, right? So the first thing that we do is mapping out the journeys, right? So we have all the sources, LinkedIn, your first-party data, which is there in LinkedIn, website, Google, Bing ads, Facebook ads, etc. CRMs, marketing automation tools. Apart from that, customers are also going to review sites and other places. So you can pull in those second-party data from G2, etc., which are the review sites. And we also kind of enrich with a lot of third-party data in getting enriched account profiles, user profiles, let's say contact details, job descriptions, and so on, job titles, and so on and so forth, right? So once you get all of this data, we kind of unfold it into a journey, right? Everything is time-stamped and stored as an event, so that there's no information lost in the process, right? If you convert everything into metric and dimension stored in tables, then the correlations are lost. Like what led to what is very important. So it's important not to lose that data. So we kind of unfold it into a timeline, and the timeline, each event could have additional properties like key value pairs. Like if it's a website session, what is the time they spent, how much did they scroll on the page, which was the landing page, and so on and so forth, right? Then we build very enriched user and account profiles, which has a lot of information about email device, which was a search term, etc. And we use identifiers, different kinds of identifiers, anonymous identifiers, known identifiers like email. For company level things, a company journey will have multiple user journeys. For company, we'll try to do IP to account and email to domain and map it and kind of tie together this data. On top of this, we also enrich the data quite a bit. We create all these special events like a website session, or we know the domain knowledge which says that, hey, the UTM parameters in the URL are important for a marketer. We'll parse it out and put it as channel, which channel, what is the campaign ID, and so on and so forth. Right? So there's like hundreds of such parameters that we kind of aggregate or kind of parse and populate for all that information to be readily available for marketers. And on top of that, we then define aggregates, like what is the total number of website sessions for a particular account, right? What is the total number of users who have engaged with an account? So you have the raw data, and then you define the metrics on top of it, so that if needed, the metrics are also important, but the raw data, which has all the information and the causal information with the timeline, is not lost. Now, one important thing that is useful for marketers is how do I improve a conversion, right? Like, how do I improve, let's say I have 1,000 people coming on my website, and I have 100 form submissions, just for the sake of argument. How do I improve the conversion? It's just 10%. How can I increase the conversions over there, right? And you could run a funnel report and say, oh, I'll see how many people landed on page A versus page B and see how they are converting. Or you could say, oh, I'll see which was the first channel or which was the first touch point they had and see whether that has an influence on X and Y. But there are hundreds or even thousands of such questions you can ask. And the problem is you never have the time or the patience to ask all those questions and figure out things. And I'm not sure if people would have seen GA or any other tool or a product analytics tool. You can also do those path diagrams, right? Like where you say 100 people came here, then it branched out into 5 other things, then it branched out into 10 other things, and finally 10 people landed on your end goal, right? But those are very hard to parse. It's very difficult to even get insights out of it, right? And that was the first reason to actually started off this company. Like I kind of had this solution in mind, and also I thought, okay, this is an interesting problem. Probably I'll build a tool which will kind of give insights out of all the journeys and kind of and sell it. But that didn't fly, and I had to build a lot more things and find customers before it was useful. But so the premise here is basically getting insights of the journey is very hard. So what we do is we kind of mine different journeys out of this. We mine sequences out of the journeys, and this is mostly around points of interest, like around a conversion goal or around the starting point. And then along with this information, we kind of mine all the properties that come together, like for each journey that happened, what are the corresponding distributions of the properties, and that properties we are modeling it like a probabilistic histogram, where every time a point goes in, we try to find the maximum likelihood bin for it and kind of put into that bin. It's a streaming one-pass thing, and that and we store this. And now once you have this, you can easily kind of search through it to kind of build something like a decision tree and pull out the insights, saying, hey, people who did A, to find an inflection point. People who did A and B are more likely to convert. Or people who are landing on this site are not converting. If the page load time is greater than 15 seconds, then most likely you're losing them, and so on and so forth. And this is across the entire journey is what we're looking at. So this insights we already have. We built it for user journeys, and now we are kind of extending it for account journeys and segments. The next thing you would want is to, okay, insights is fine, historical data is fine, but I want to take action now, right? And to take action, can you tell me what to focus on, which leads to focus on, which accounts to focus on? So there we have an account scoring model wherein you can set up rules and kind of score the accounts. But we are also building a predictive account scoring model, and it's out in beta currently. And what this helps is because we have a generic set of rules, and people don't go and update those rules based on their context, right? So it's better we build it out for them. We figure out what the rules are that is leading to higher engagement and conversion. And here what we do is, given a conversion goal, like let's say you want to know, oh, which are the most probable deals that I'll close in the next 7 days. Let me focus on that as an account executive, right? So what you need is, given all the accounts where the deal hasn't been closed, you need to find the ones which are most likely to convert in the next 7 days. You need to kind of predict in the timeline whether this event will happen in the next 7 days. We started with a very simple model of kind of picking for the training data all the journeys, both which are converted and not converted in the past. And if it is converted, kind of restricted to 7 days prior data. And within that, you kind of break it down into multiple weeks of data so that your models actually work for even for early predictions. So the most of the value is in early prediction rather than late prediction. You don't want to do at X minus 7 days the prediction. You're better off if you do it X minus 21 days, that this is most likely to convert and focus on it earlier, right? So we break the journey into multiple parts and then kind of aggregate all the metrics in the journey so that we have a simple feature map and build a random forest kind of algorithm to kind of do the predictions out there. And the main thing that we look for is the lift, right? Because if you don't have a score, you are just looking at a random list of accounts. Now, if you have a score, let's say you have 100 accounts and you have time to focus on only 10 accounts today. If I were to pick it by random or by some heuristic, how many of them would convert? But whereas if I go by the predictive score, how many of them would convert, right? And then see the lift. More than the prediction accuracy, the lift that you get out of it is what we look at, what we train on also. So this is the next module. Now we have the analytics, we have segmentation engine, we have this insights engine which kind of gives insights out of your journeys and also predictions out of it. Now, how do we make LLMs work with it, right? So LLMs are good with language. So we had one more problem, which was that our reporting interface, though it's easy to use, you need some understanding of how to use it. Right? There are different kinds of reports you could build. You could build a KPI report, which is basically metrics and dimensions, or you could build a funnel report, or you could build a multi-touch attribution mixed modeling kind of report, and so on. So we thought we'll solve that problem first, and when we're solving that problem, we thought we'll give a textual interface for analytics, right? So we started off building text to API instead of text to SQL, but it's very similar to text to API. And what this does is basically you could ask a question in natural language, and it'll build out the report for you and give the answers, right? So now we're kind of extending it for all the use cases on the product, so that you can ask questions like, what is the number of website sessions where the channel is paid search last week, right? And it'll build out the report and give the answer to you. Or the accounts that saw a LinkedIn ad and visited a website, right? Which would be like a funnel report, or breakdowns and filters and so on. Or you could also ask in natural language for it to build a segment. Give me the list of accounts that have visited pricing page and are most likely to convert to a lead, right? And what this does is takes this question and converts it into a request. So how we are done is basically at a very high level. We have built a huge list of examples using some templates. We have templates of query, and you have all your metrics, dimensions, and all the query parameters that you already know, which is there in the database. And using that, we've generated like 1 million examples and stored the query and the expected output, right? So it is two-phase. First, we take a query, we convert it into a JSON, and then we convert it into an API, right? Because a JSON is a simpler interpretation of the query that we have, right? And so the first thing, the one at the bottom is basically is a RAG-based technique which fetches all the which fetches all the similar queries that is there in the vector DB, pulls out like 10 or 15, and the corresponding JSON templates, and gives that to LLM. And the LLM just says, okay, given this context, I think this is the JSON query that you need, right? And it pushes it out. But the problem is LLMs will put its own parameters, and the example database is not scaling for us, right? Like, because if you want to break it down into 5 different things, right? We had to generate examples for all the combinations of 5 different things, which will just explode over time. So the second thing that we're building on top of it is so that we can kind of support a lot more queries, is building classifiers based on the knowledge of that metadata that is out there, right? Like if you were to do text to SQL, right, your understanding of what each column means and what are the values in the column is important to kind of convert the text to a SQL query. You also need examples to convert it to text to SQL, and you also need an inbuilt knowledge that the LLM has to convert it to text to SQL. So all 3 will kind of come into play. Similarly, over here, we're building classifiers which will use the knowledge of the metrics, dimensions, the values that is out there of use for marketers to kind of figure out, okay, what is the template of the JSON, and then what are the keys, what are the values, and it'll come up with its own set of prediction. And then we take those 2, merge it, and then again vet it against existing values so that there are no some random values, right? Like, for example, the name of the metric in our database would be session, right? And if you run a query against session, then metric name exactly called session, it'll work. If you were to run, like, but if the question asked by the user is how many website sessions last week, right? Then the LLM would say the name of the metric is website session rather than session, though it has got examples. So we need to kind of clean it up, match it with the existing values, both keys and values, and then pull out the JSON query and then convert to an API request, right? So this we are doing for all our APIs, so that what this allows us is next to kind of train our agents using natural language, right? So what we have done is basically we've taken crew.ai and build out an interface for it so that we can build agents easily by engineering prompts on top of it. And what we do is we give all the context for it. So you have agents which you can configure a ton of things out there. You can configure an agent, you can configure a tool, you can configure the task, you can configure the backstory, and so on. So we're kind of trying out how we can configure all of that. But the tool that we give is this text to API engine, right? Which is basically saying, okay, you ask this question, and it will convert the text to an API, fetch it, and then do it. So what we do is we give a list of questions to it. Like, we are building different kinds of agents with a lot of domain knowledge baked in, which says a web analytics specialist, a paid search specialist, a CRO agent, and so on. And for each week, we are putting in the domain knowledge that we think are important for the marketers. We give it like a bank of questions that it can use to do the analysis, and also give some leeway for it to innovate on top of it, right? Like, what analysis to do, and it kind of starts running the questions, it gets the exact answers, it doesn't hallucinate we parse out the answers and then build a report and some recommendations on top of it. Yeah, so this is broadly what we're building. I thought that rather than just keeping it to what we have built, I'll also talk about what we're building, how we plan to build, and if there's any feedback on this also, I think it'll be useful for us to fix it early on. So that's about it. I'm ready to take questions now.